There's something very peculiar about the Hebrew name of the month of Tishrei, which is that the letters that spell out the name Tishrei is Taf, Shin, Resh, and then Yud. So Taf, Shin, Resh is actually the final 3 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, but in reverse order. So you start with the last letter, second to the last letter, and the third to the last letter, which Kabbalistically means that normally the structure of energy flowing downward would start with an Aleph, and from an Aleph it would go downward into a Beis, into a Gimel. That would be the flow of energy in a direct form. But when things are spelled with their opposite direction, it represents something that is a movement not from the top downward, an energy flow downward, but an energy flow upward. That you're starting from the lower, for the Tuf, which is the final form, and then you're moving up the ladder. Tishrei, the entire month of Tishrei, is a month that we teach ourselves and we learn how to self-generate. If you look through the high holidays of Tishrei, you'll see nothing spectacular happen. Rosh Hashanah, which is the beginning of the high holidays, or Yom Kippur, or even Sukkot, according to certain opinions, nothing spectacular happened, no miracle. We sat in the sukkah because that's the sukkah that we sat when we left Egypt. Yom Kippur is a time of tshuva. Rosh Hashanah is a time of judgment. Nothing spectacular. We're not celebrating the splitting of the sea. We're not celebrating the going out of Egypt. We're celebrating that we have a connection. That we, which is the below, can move upward to above. So instead of the energy flowing from up, down, and we're being inspired, but we're actually moving upward. You know, there's a difference between, let's say, a teacher teaching a student, and the student is listening to the teacher and is very, in the presence of the teacher, the student completely understands what the teacher said. The student, in the presence of the teacher, completely understands what the teacher says. But then the student leaves the room, and someone asks them, you know, what did your teacher say? And he says, I forgot everything. But when they're in the presence of the teacher, they remember everything. Nisan, the month when we're given something as a gift, is a month that you're in the presence of the great teacher. But it's not a time that we learn because you're just given as a gift. Tishrei is a time when we move upward, when we decide that we want a connection. It's the idea of creating something from ourselves. We are participating in the process, we're not just receiving the process. And that's why the month of Tishrei is also connected with the image of scales, which is the idea of balance. The true balance of life is when we learn to take inspiration from above, or inspiration that comes from us from the outside. You read a book, you meet someone, you're inspired, and then to couple inspiration with perspiration, which is our participation in our lives, to make a difference. Not just to take something that was given to us, but to work on participating in our own process of growth. And Tishrei is about all this ideas of Rosh Hashanah's idea of judgment. On the deepest level, it means to self-judge, to ask yourself who you are, what's my purpose. Yom Kippur is a time that you encounter yourself, strip away all your food, all your clothes, all your image of your false connections and attachments to different images of self, and ask yourself, and who am I now? If I take away my job and I take away my things that surround me, my clothes, my house, my car, who am I as a person? What's my identity? So to really find myself, who is my real self? That's Yom Kippur. And then Sukkot is, now that I know who I am, now I need to be protected a little because I have to grow. So I move into a Sukkah. But the whole process of the month of Tishrei is to self-generate, to ask yourself a serious question of who am I, and how could I connect myself with something that's much larger than me and higher than me.